So, last week I have been sharing about darkness and, how darkness is actually, if we look at it in a different way, if we reframe, darkness can be a kind of protection and a very nourishing place also, if we can really open to it. And it can enable and support transformation to happen. Like when we cut a finger, and then if we keep it clean and we cover it over, keep it in protected, it just heals all by itself. So the darkness can be a true support for the self-healing intelligence of the planetary system to take over. And one of the main reasons for that to be able to happen is actually impermanence, the constant change which is taking place, on all levels of our lives, internally and externally. And, recently I spoke quite a lot about the 4 establishments of mindfulness as a support system to help us, really deeply see that constant change of all of our experiences. The first establishment being the body, where we can somatically experience that. The second one is feeling tones. It's an affective experience. Third one, mental states, cognitive experience. And the fourth one are principles of experience, where we can start to see the conditionality and the impersonal nature of our lives, where we can really see that there are certain principles happening all the time, and impermanence being one of those. So those 3 characteristics are revealed through insight practice, and when they are really deeply seen for what they are, the mind responds with letting go. And this is like real why we are meditating. And the first of the 3 characteristics, sometimes also called the 3 signs or seals also sometimes. First one is impermanence. That's the one which is most easy to discern. Second one is dukkha or suffering, which comes if we are holding on to that which is impermanent, because then there is like a stress is coming from that, which we experience as suffering. And the third one in Pali is called anatta, which we can translate as not self, or sometimes we can also speak to it as emptiness. The fact, that the sense of self is a conditioned construct, which can be slowly but surely let go of through insight practice. And the progression of insight reveals that constructed nature of the sense of self. And through that also, we start to understand the origin of suffering, that it is something, which is coming from misunderstanding the true nature of reality, which is constantly changing, and these mind patterns of ours, which are operating as if that wouldn't be the fact, where we are, through greed, we tend to hold on and want to nail something down. And aversion is, not really wanting something and pressing it away. And that's the origin of suffering. The origin of suffering isn't in the phenomena which we're experiencing, but in the way how we relate to the phenomena. And this is just a very significant shift. Once we start to understand this, then we feel really motivated to practice. Once we really see that suffering isn't a feature of the phenomena we are experiencing, but it's the result of grasping. So, let us find a posture we can sustain for about 50 minutes so we can start with our meditation today. Just, taking the time to land here in the little Sangha today. And just checking in with yourself, how you are arriving here today. Checking in with the body. The emotional state. And what's going on in the mind. And that which is aware of all of that, what's happening. Awareness. That's how we land here today. And, taking in the support of the group, the regularity of our meetings, and allowing the breath to take you into the body. The gravity which gently, pulls us towards where we are sitting and below towards the soil, the planet. And just, with the out breath, gently, allowing some roots to go down into the soil underneath where we are sitting. And with the in-breath, breathing up the vastness and the stillness and the stability of the earth. And with every out breath, maybe going a little bit deeper without any pressure. Just, noticing, is there a connection to the earth becoming apparent or maybe not? Just noticing what's there. Just being also aware of the constant interchange between our bodies and the earth through eating, drinking, breathing, going to the bathroom, the fact that we are not separate, that we are actually this planet, and that this is something which becomes more and more conscious now this time as our species becomes aware of its impact more and more fully. And all of the pressure which that builds up for us. As we are noticing dissonance more and more. Then just checking, if the mind wanders off into some thought about something, you're noticing what feeling tone is there. Is it pleasant or unpleasant? If the mind wanders off into thinking about something else, it's probably unpleasant. The feeling tone, if the mind holds on, it's probably goes more into it, it's probably connected with greed, just seeing that conditionality. And also, where is this feeling in the body? So that recognition of the feeling tone is very important because it sends us off into all kinds of directions if it isn't really noticed. That's the second establishment of mindfulness, feeling tone. So we are supported, by the groundedness of the earth, by the solidity of the earth, the stability, and supported through the constant exchange with the vast biosphere. And from that basis of support, we can monitor the mind. And noticing how is the mind right now? Is it settled? Can it stay with the simplicity of the body breathing in and breathing out? And maybe noticing also the subtle, pleasant feeling tone which comes from being able to stay with the breathing and with the body. Like a temporary liberation of the mind. A mind which is open and not holding on to anything. how that feels when greed and hatred are in abeyance, because the mind is settled and the body is at ease. And noticing the spaciousness which is there. Like being rooted like a tree in the depths of the earth and stretching out into the spaciousness. This openness of the mind. And listening into this spaciousness, into the silence. Space which doesn't end at the walls of this room where we are sitting in, but is boundless. Then, bringing up an image of a person or a situation which is difficult at this time on the planet where there's so many areas of crisis, the Ukraine, Gaza, climate crisis, so many other areas. And bringing up the wish, may all beings be free from harm and their intention to harm. May all beings be able to access that spaciousness. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. And allowing that wish to become alive in your heart and permeate the body with every out breath. And with the in breath, just sensing how that intention, may all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm, how that conditions the body and the mind. That wish. And then, allowing that energy to radiate out in front of us. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. Then allowing that energy to radiate to one side as well. Behind us. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. Then to the other side. Above and below. Allowing this in a very gentle energy, this healing energy to radiate out from our hearts. At a time in history where more and more of us become aware how the, collective, ancestral and individual trauma is at the root of so much brutality and warfare. And not caring and also, manifesting as the climate crisis. the inability to really empathize and connect. And doing this reconnective work is so important. And starting to connect with ourselves. In times when there is a lot of unpleasant Vedana, unpleasant feeling down in the body, to really stay with that. That's at the root of the issue. That we usually, if we are not training ourselves, there's a tendency to turn away. And this is why we're meeting as a collective here, so we can support each other to stay with what is present, to resource ourselves, to be able to stay with that. But at the same time, nourishing the wish that all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm, including ourselves. To be in that stretch zone and staying there. That's the training. This is what it is to metabolize the past inside of ourselves. And sensing the discomfort of this metabolizing process. Like, in a way, the past is chewed up and then composted into a more coherent way of being. And then bringing that into the world through embodying it, becoming that medicine by going through the discomfort willingly. So taking advantage of impermanence. By staying connected to our own experience. As it undergoes, that as the system undergoes this transformation. And through staying with it, through turning towards it, it happens naturally. We turn away from it and shut down, we get stuck. It's stuck in the past. through repetition compulsion, the same thing happening again and again and again. There's no growth. So softening with the discomfort, that's what we can do. Noticing when we are tensing up, when there's aversion, which is a natural response, but then turning towards that and bringing a softness to it, an acceptance, opening. And then trusting, that self-healing process, that self-organizing intelligence of life to take care of it. It's not something we need to do, but it's more we need to allow it to happen. And I find that very comforting. That's the Dhamma. That's nature. Doing its job if we allow it, if we can make the space. Leading onwards, leading inwards. This is one of the qualities of the Dhamma, Opanaiko. It's like a garden, where there is work to be done to clear it up and keep it well tended, watered, make sure there's enough sunlight and not too much. But then, the growth process is out of our hands. But putting causes and conditions in place, that's where we can have a great influence on how stable that growth is. That's wisdom and compassion, really. To know how to support that growth in ourselves and also in others. And we're paying attention to impermanence transforms us. As we are starting to understand more and more, that we are not in control and we don't need to be. That leads to what in the scriptures is called dispassion, like a washing away of clinging, a washing away of trying to nail things down, which are constantly in flux. And once, we see that more clearly, the clinging becomes more relaxed, slowly but surely there's a capacity to really live from that place. Because that faith, in the truth of the impermanence is so deep that we have the courage to trust it. That things take the course they will take, which leads towards growth and increasing wisdom and compassion if we stay in connection with what is happening, if we allow it. And through that, there's an increasing capacity for getting out of the way, letting go. It's getting easier and easier. And then we can even, trust that things do end, that this is also part of this dharma, this life. Things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once the mind and the heart, really see that very clearly, the letting go is a natural response of adjustment. And then we become part of that flow. Then the fully taking the plunge into the flow that's equated with nibbana or nirvana in the early teaching. The mind fully adapting to the way things are. Then, it becomes very clear that the notion of self is assumption which has its usefulness, but ultimately isn't real. And how we can, create increasingly more space in our hearts and minds and in our lives. So that we can respond rather than react and become the medicine we are looking for. So that kind of healing, is the unboarding of the past, the unboarding of undigested material by being with it. So that there's more space to receive more of our true potential. And without any spaciousness and without grounding, that process cannot happen. The growth depends really on the day space for it to land in us. For the unmanifest to become manifest in our lives. And opening to higher insight for any updates, anything more to include, in our perspective. And then bringing our attention to the top of the head. And maybe a bit beyond that. And opening ourselves consciously to any updates which want to come in. I'm here, I'm available, I'm listening. And sensing. Just stay a little bit above the head, where we can receive the unmanifest as insight. It's like a practice of opening over and over again. And connecting, with that downward streaming of information. It can land in us if there is space. So our next update, what we have not yet manifested in our lives, might that have now space to become embodied. The potential, which wants to enrich our lives. That urge to evolve and become the medicine we are looking for. Something we can contribute to the world. Getting, more of our potential into embodiment. By being with the stretching of the growth experience, which doesn't really care about pleasant or unpleasant. That's not the point. But we can resource ourselves so we can be with whatever is happening. And taking that as a teaching. So in a minute or so, I'm going to ring the bell. I'm going to read again those 4 Dhammas by Gampopa. Grant your blessings so that my mind may be one with the Dharma. Grant your blessings so that Dharma may progress along the path. Grant your blessings so that the path may clarify confusion.